This is a report in the subject Philippine Social Realities and Social Welfare, with the topic Social Issues and Problems of Different Sectors of the Philippine Society with their situation, needs, issues, and struggles from a gender lens. So what is the topic? The topic is about informal settlers. I am your reporter, Shanalyn A. Loron, a first-year college student in the course Bachelor of Science in Social Work. The main topic in this report is about Manila's informal settler faced relocation in exchange for Clean Bay. The relocation of informal settlers is a part of a 7-year plan to clean up Manila Bay, one of Metro Manila's most polluted bodies of water. Before I continue, I will first discuss what is informal settler or who are considered as an informal settler. Individuals and organizations who establish their primary residence in predominantly metropolitan locations and types of dwellings regarded unlawful or in conflict with prevalent societal norms are referred to as informal settlers. So it means that they are the ones who settles on the land of another without title or right or without the owner's consent, whether it is in urban areas or in rural areas. Next is what is informal settlement. It is the areas where a group of housing units has been built on land that the occupants do not have a legal claim to or that they are occupying illegally. Lack of basic facilities, pollution, overcrowding, and inadequate waste management are all common features of informal communities. These traits have negative impacts on the environment, increasing the likelihood of health problems linked to informal settlements. Informal settlements include the following: squatter settlements on public or private land, settlements for refugees and vulnerable people, upgraded squatter settlements, illegal suburban land subdivisions on private or public land, often on the urban fringe, overcrowded, dilapidated housing without adequate facilities in city centers or densely urbanized areas. As you can see in the picture attached, the houses are very compacted and the surroundings are polluted, including the waterway. Manila, Philippines. The Philippine government will set aside 1 billion pesos in its national budget for the resettlement of informal settlers displayed by Manila-based rehabilitation in 2021. In the Philippines, settlers are still present despite the government's responses. The number of people has increased. Thus, the new possible solutions such as allocating more funds for the housing project, more effective location planning, and the construction of more infrastructure near relocation areas will undoubtedly be improvement. More than 70,000 informal settlers relocated for Manila Bay Rehab. 70,165 informal settler families from Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Calabar Zone have been resettled. This is about 24% of the 190,655 informal settlers that need to be relocated for rehabilitation of Manila Bay. The rehabilitation of Manila Bay began in January of this year with the goal of reducing water pollution, particularly coliform bacteria levels, which have reached up to 3 million, most probably number per 100 milliliters. As you can see in the picture, that is the before and after of Manila Bay with its rehabilitation. Manila Bay area is the Philippines' most important economic hub with shipping, industrial, commercial, fishing, aquaculture, and tourism operations all centered there. The natural ecosystem in and around the bay is under threat from a variety of issues including overpopulation, population from land and sea-based and diminishing resources. These issues have resulted in considerable ecosystem and biodiversity deterioration affecting the needs of all living species along the bay. The Philippine government has started the process of moving over 200,000 families who live beside rivers in order to rehabilitate Manila Bay, the capital's principal body of water. Saving the bay. Pollution and deforestation are threatening the bay's natural ecosystems, including mangroves, mudflats, and coral reefs, and failure to act will result in a fall in fisheries. Mayor Moreno also talked about turning around 30% of the city's total land area into green spaces by redeveloping parks and planting more trees, which could address the city's perennial flooding and vulnerability to climate change. Fighting climate change impact. When it comes to relocating informal settlers, the bay's pollution isn't the government's only concern. There is also climate change. So when there's natural resources that falls in the country, many people's lives are at stake, especially those who are living near the base and those who are in lowlands and compacted areas. That is why all of us should and must prepare for anything to avoid further harm and damages, also with the help of the government. Due to the relocation, informal settlers have felt a lot. They felt overwhelmed. They feel fear and unconscious because of having a new environment. They feel worried that a lot of things may change. Some are okay with the relocation because according to them, being relocated is a blessing for they can live neatly in the not so crowded areas and they can have their own home. Pollution. Degradation of water quality, coastal erosion and siltation, overexploitation of fishing resources, habitat degradation, and biodiversity loss have all been cited as major environmental issues in Manila Bay. Land-based human activities such as the discharge of urban, industrial, and agricultural waste, land runoff, and air disposition were responsible for the majority of the contamination. The Pasig River Basin contributed about 21% of the organic pollution load to Manila Bay, with housing accounting for 70% of that. And lastly, the conclusion. Having informal settlers be relocated to a proper housing area is a very good thing to do. It does not only helps in renovating the precious Manila Bay, but it also helps the families that live there to have a proper home and avoid further harm and damages.
And I'm Christine Julilay Mainit. Amid the pandemic, evictions plague the Philippines. Evictions in Islam communities have been steadily increasing in the Philippines, even as the country continues to enforce quarantine procedures, more commonly called demolition. The violent tearing down of homes is a common feature in informal settlements, especially around Metro Manila. These demolition and evictions are done either on the whim of private claimants to lots of lands where informal settlements have been established by the right of way given for public and private infrastructure development, or when a community is deemed a danger area by the authorities. How can Filipinos, especially low-income families, stay at home when they are forced into homelessness? Global and local public health crisis stemming from the coronavirus is still in full swing. It begs the questions of how Filipino, especially low-income families, are supposed to stay at home when they are being forced into homelessness. In this March 24, 2020 photo is a sign that prohibits non-residents from entering the area is at the entrance of slum area as two men sit outside while the city goes on enhanced community quarantine to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus in Metro Manila, Philippines. On April 2, the Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, issued a memorandum ordering all local government to postpone any and all eviction-related activities. The memo cites the standing state of calamity in the country. The state of calamity was recently extended by the President Rodrigo Duterte for another year until September 2021. In the past, the administration has certainly preached that there will be no demolition without relocation. But in March, around 120 families in Pasay Metro Manila were evicted without prior notice. In July, 300 families in Cabuyao, Laguna were also evicted to make way for expansion of the Philippine railway system. Neither of the two incidents featured any option or assistance for relocation. More recently, in early September, the Manila government issued a demolitions order that will affect 1,000 of residents living in state-owned housing in Tondo area. An estimated 800 families are living in two tenements owned by the National Housing Authority or NHA. The NHA's categorizations arguably involve the city government to order a demolition. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno has offered the affected resident a spot in the new condominium, but public housing is not always readily affordable. There are no guarantees that low-income families will be able to pay for the offered relocation sites. For her part, Gabriela Women's Party and Housing Committee member, Congresswoman Arlene Brosas. Within the Intramuros district is another Manila slum facing demolition. More than 1,000 residents face certain homelessness in October with relocation yet to be offered by any government body. She told the diplomat, "Why are the demolitions being upheld during the pandemic? Things are bad now without unnecessary working to worsen the situation." According to Gisa Tolda of the local group United Homeowners Association, a Chinese company, LG Mattison Development, won a legal case in court declaring themselves the legitimate owners of the land on which the resident currently live. Furthermore, the court deemed that claiming the land can take effect on October 11. Tolda also revealed that in September, the Presidential Commission for the Urban Poor, or PCUP, informed locals that they underwent a pre-demolition conference that will eventually lead to an evictions notice. No notice has so far been served, but in many cases, demolition stems and trucks accompanied by law enforcement often strike without warning. Tolda also shared with the diplomat the sentiments of her fellow homeowners. "We have no idea why the company is pushing for a demolition during the pandemic. Even the courts are siding with them. If we have to go, then we will. But not without a proper relocation site for us. But then, there is even another complication of getting tested for the virus before we are transferred. Tests are very expensive." The National Urban Poor Group slammed the surge in demolitions being reported in the country and in Metro Manila especially. They noted that aside from Tondo and Intramuros, 4 other communities in the city face evictions with more than 10,000 families being affected in total. They also noted another 2 cases in nearby provinces of Bulacan and Cavite to make way for the state-sponsored Aerotropolis and a real estate project respectively. While city governments have come to the forefront of this demolitions complex, Mimi Doringo, spokespersons of Kadamay, also points a finger at the Duterte administration.
Hello everyone, I am Angelica Emaniscan. Disability and poverty in the Philippines. In the Philippines, mental health problems for those who are disabled have recently skyrocketed. As COVID-19 spread, disabled citizens living in the Philippines suffered from a lack of treatment and heightened concerns. Furthermore, inequality rose as there was a lack of healthcare data to help inform and protect disabled. Disability and poverty in the Philippines are connected. Fortunately, the government is taking steps to help the disabled communities for the Philippines with the hope of decreasing poverty and increasing protection. So let's move on to poverty and disability. So, approximately 15% of the world population experience a form of disability. In the Philippines, the 2016 NDPS or National Disability Prevalence Survey revealed that 12% of Filipino 15 and older suffer from a severe disabilities. Furthermore, 47% of people have moderate conditions and 23% have mild disabilities. Compared to the global average, these rates are high. In part, this is due to the fact that developing countries are more likely a higher prevalence of disabilities. COVID-19 had a major impact on the accessibility of healthcare for the disabled. The pandemic placed limits to those who needed sign language interpreters, braille translations, and handicap services. Those with the medical disabilities needed to be extra cautious as not to endanger themselves to contracting COVID-19. In many cases, poverty in the Philippines is related to disability. The disabled face a higher likelihood of poverty and lower rate of education, health, and employment.
So next, the financial support. In response of the COVID-19 pandemic, financial support is being provided to people with disabilities in the Philippines. In Cebu City, the government provided financial aid in the form of income, supplies, and resources in May 2021. Essentials such as wheelchairs, hearing aids, and medicines were given to eligible people in need. Each household received 5,000 in monetary assistance covering January to May 2021, a period of time where no was given. Josh Maglasang is one example of the program's success. As someone with a disability, he expressed his happiness and relief regarding to the recent financial assistance. He also acknowledged that monthly payments will help him cover medical costs. Moreover, he was specifically grateful to receive the overdue assistance. Recent exposure to poverty in the Philippines is helping initiatives such as this one pass. So last, let's proceed to the government measures. Disability legislation has aided the disabled in the Philippines for many years. The Magna Carta for Disabled Persons Act was passed in 2007, allowing all disabled citizens to receive a minimum 20% discount from stores and services, dental and medical care, hotels, theater, and travel are all included for this coverage. Furthermore, in regards of education, the disabled have the right to primary, secondary, and all higher level of schooling with a proper financial assistance granted. This comes in the form of aid packages, scholarships, full coverage, and book of and supply financing. For those who are physically or mentally unable to work, rights to benefits from the Social Security System or SSS and Governmental Services Insurance System or GSIS are provided.
Hello everyone, by the way, I am Cheryl Milabriza, a BSSW student from Section 1A. Okay, hello, good day everyone. Yes, it's me, Cheryl Milabriza, and for today's video, I will be discussing about the social issues and problems of different sectors of the Philippine society, their situation, their needs, their issues and struggles from a gender lens. And I will be focusing on the topic which is entitled PWDs or persons with disabilities. Okay, so now I will be discussing how to manage the mental health of a persons with disabilities amid the COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines with its specific factors and key actions. So, acknowledging the importance of mental health, the United Nations 2020 has called for the need for actions to safeguard mental health. So, for one, it urged that mental health and social care for people with severe mental health conditions and psychosocial disabilities must be part of the definition of essential services in all countries. So, the World Health Organization 2020 likewise recognized the greater risk of PWDs of contracting the COVID-19 infection. So, these are the specific factors that underlie the vulnerabilities of PWDs. So, this will review the specific factors that reveal the propensity of PWDs toward vulnerability amid the COVID-19 crisis. So, there are certain factors that are often provided attention in studies on the vulnerable segments of society, particular to PWDs. So we have first factors is the inadequate information on the types of disability. So based on the 2010 population census, out of the 92.1 million household population in the country, 1.44 million persons or 1.57% had disability, and it is according to the Philippine Statistic Authority 2010. So this problem springs from another problem, which is perennial inadequacy of access to diagnosis services. So most of the surveys conducted on disability are not an as census but sample only based on not highly reliable sources. So second, we have the negative social perception towards PWD. So despite numerous policies such as Executive Order number 385 and Executive Order number 261 that promote social awareness of PWDs in the country, so stereotypes are still prevalent. So this bias against PWDs in the Philippines has been reported in other spheres of community life and amid the COVID-19 crisis. For instance, there are news reports about the refusal of insurance contract applications, as well as employment on the ground of disability. So we have here also the inaccessible health services particular to PWDs. So Republic Act 11228, which mandates that the development of inclusive packages for PWDs addressing the specific health and development needs. And also according to Republic Act number 7277 on the provisions of auxiliary aids and services and rehabilitation, and the Republic Act number 10754 on the discounts on essential medical services such as the medicine and laboratory tests. It further pointed out that the marginalized sector, that includes the PWDs, can avail of the health services through sponsorship programs, but they still need to apply or be identified for this sponsorship. So these are the three factors that underlie the PWDs, or the vulnerabilities PWDs. So again, we have the key actions to manage the mental health of PWDs. So providing key actions to manage the mental health of PWDs amid the COVID-19 crisis, the following key actions are cogently based on the specific factors. The government to carefully review guidelines and equal issues orders to ensure that PWDs get equal services and privileges during the COVID-19 crisis. Second, we have the educational institutions should conduct webinars for families of PWDs and the PWDs themselves to discuss coping strategies to stand the psychosocial pressure brought by the crisis. Then third, we have the highest attainable standard of mental health is sustainability. And we have the expansion of diagnosis services so that accurate psychological, intellectual, and developmental status of PWDs can brought as sought. Then we have the different stakeholders are strongly encouraged to take key consulting actions with representative organizations to frame multi-sectoral mental health responses for PWDs. And then responses may include the human rights groups, education sector, health department, disability organizations, and private stakeholders. There should be a continuous support and subsidy for existing policies on national mental health responses, improvements of social services, especially at the community level, protection of the rights by monitoring equal access to such services, and promotion of inclusive education in the new normal period. Then we have the healthcare service providers should establish or increase their telehealth system in the country to include especially the PWDs in the remote areas. then, okay, we have here the conclusions of this topic. So, a closer look at the specific factors can lead to the formulation of key actions to manage the mental health of PWDs. This short report discussed the specific factors and key actions in managing the mental health of PWDs amid the COVID-19 pandemic in a developing country of the Philippines. So these actions indicate the need to reconsider current guidelines in designing intervention programs for PWDs, involve stakeholders and multi-sectoral responses for PWDs, sustain the subsidy to support the PWDs, and include the PWDs in the present mental health assessment and national census. So that's it for the topic PWDs. Thank you.